Morning, everyone. It's my favorite day of the week. It's Thursday. It's also April 14th. That means we're in the springtime, which we've been now for a month. But, spring and Thursday together, to me, pretty good combination. So I'm excited about today's show, excited about the day in general. Uh, we're on day, I guess this is the fourth day of the dry challenge. It's funny. I feel like it was just day one a little while ago. So that's moving along. Honestly, not really I don't know, not noticeably different. It's not like it's not the massive disruption I thought. Weekends for me is when it's going to be disruptive. So we'll see what happens. Adding Duncan to Instagram now, and we'll hear how he's doing with his dry challenge, assuming he's still on it, hasn't caved yet.
Hey,
right.
Matt.
There's Doug. How's it going?
It's going. It's going
Right.
great. It's just a beautiful day. It's a perfect day. Today is a perfect day.
And does that have to do with enhanced mood from no drinking? You think? You
I
feeling?
mean, maybe.
better?
I don't know. I'm feeling mighty chipper. It's a
Right.
I woke up at 4:30 this morning.
Oh, okay.
Not on purpose. Chloe woke me up. She called out, woke me up, and I was planning to wake up around 5:05 in order to meet somebody for a bike ride.
Mm-hmm.
But that 4:30 wake up, I was laying in bed, kind of stewing in the fact that I was waking up in the fours because I wasn't going to be able to go back to sleep, so I couldn't fall back to sleep before
Right.
5. But you know what? It has. I'm still happy. I'm still in a good mood. I'm not crashing yet.
Wow. Yeah, you stayed up since then, huh? Usually I would. Well, I guess you met that person. You still did that. You didn't cancel that thing.
No, I thought about it, but I didn't. I stayed
Right.
strong, and yeah.
Okay. Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, maybe it does have to do with the no drinking. I finished that podcast yesterday, the Andrew Huberman one,
Uh-huh.
on alcohol, which actually is very informative. A lot of good stuff I learned from there. I'll say that it did not make me like never want to drink again the way a lot of people have said that it would.
Okay.
It just made me not want to be like a daily drinker. It made me think like there's a lot of damage to be done in 2 drinks a day, even 1 drink a day. I think the thing to aim for is more like, yeah, every couple of days you have a little glass of wine, and not much. So I don't know. That's kind of the message I took from it. He also gave some interesting tips. He gave a bunch of like hangover cures and stuff, which seems sort of out of place for that
Oh,
episode.
interesting. Okay.
I don't know why. It was so much about how bad drinking was, and it was like, but if you're going to, here's some ways to feel better. So he gave some of that stuff, and it sort of made sense what he said. There's no miracle fix, but electrolytes, of course, fermented foods, he said, or any sort of gut nourishment. He said, very good thing. But also, just in general, he said, if you can eat a lot more low sugar fermented foods, you're just going to do great things for your gut. That alcohol is constantly kind of where alcohol is doing bad things, basically.
So all the time, eat good fermented foods, and that will help with hangovers in general across the board. So
not hangovers, just general like alcohol damage to your gut, right? Because the alcohol is always killing bacteria of all kinds, good and bad. So he just said it was good, but specifically on hangover day as well. That was the time to do that. The other thing that was interesting is he said, if you're going to drink and you're worried about the cancer risk, which I am, that's my number one fear with that. He said, if you get a lot of B vitamins, specifically B12 and folate, you will be combating that. You will be blunting whatever the bad. I don't understand much about how it works, but you will be mitigating it somewhat. So I thought that was interesting, and I looked then up folate foods, and it turns out beans were the number one folate food that came up when I searched that. So I was happy about that. And so are a whole lot of other plant foods. Eggs was the only animal product that was high up on the list. So that made me feel pretty good. I've been doing a good job of that. Take compliment, get my B12 in there.
Breaking news. Matt's the podcast that calls everyone to stop drinking is now giving Matt an excuse to drink more.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of did. No, I didn't do that, but I did find it surprising that he was basically, and he said fairly, he said, I'm not trying to tell you stop drinking. I'm just saying be informed, make a good choice. So anyway, it was kind of good, like that.
So I got 2 kind of funny things about the dry challenge. I don't know if we're gonna talk about it every single day. I hope not. I hope it's not a thing. But we're on day 4 now. One is I really do think, and this might be placebo. It might be entirely placebo, but I really do think that like 1 beer a night or whatever that I was typically drinking on a Tuesday night was doing more for like causing more grogginess in the morning than I realized.
Uh-huh. I think that's correct. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but he said that on the podcast. He said even in one drink, sometime around bedtime, within a couple hours of it, he said we'll make it so that those first few hours of sleep are not the same as the sleep you get without that. Not that you're not going to still sleep; it's just going to be a different quality. So
I believe it.
Maybe you're right.
I believe it. I mean, it seems I kind of a little embarrassed to admit that, honestly, like that maybe this daily routine was having a bigger impact on my mornings than I realized. But yeah, I don't know. I've felt really good every day this week. And then, so the other funny thing is I was trying to think of, it is just absolutely perfect mountain weather right now. It's like crisp in the evening and sunny and warm in the daytime. It's like, this is why you moved to the mountains of North Carolina. And last night I just really wanted to sit out and have a drink on the patio. And so I was like, okay, what can I do? And I still haven't decided if bitters are okay yet. And so, but I realized I was like looking through the liquor cabinet for those bitters, and I found an old bottle of oh shoot, what's it called? Ritual? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Ritual Zero
right.
Proof?
Yeah.
The zero proof liquor.
Right.
And it was, I looked at it, I was like, sure, this is not still good because there's no alcohol in there, but apparently it is if it's unopened, and it was unopened, the whiskey. So I made a little whiskey mocktail, and was sipping it and enjoying it. And Chloe asked for a sip, and normally I would say no, if it had alcohol, but I was like, sure, you can have it. And she loved it. So apparently she's got a good, she's got a taste for whiskey.
Good. Well, that's a great thing to develop in a child. So kudos to you for that. Good. Yeah, I hated that Ritual stuff when I tried it. I had it a few times, and I never thought it was good. I don't think I drank the whiskey. I had the gin and something else, and it was okay. But
the gin and tonics I thought were really good. The whiskey never appealed to me because I quite like whiskey, bourbon. But I don't know. I enjoyed, we went through the gin quickly. Anyway, good morning, everyone. There's a bunch of people over on YouTube.
Yeah, Bianca and Emery are both on vacation, both checking in today. I guess they're usually, Emery's not been listening as much because she's on vacation, but today she is. Bianca usually doesn't get to listen because she works during the show hours, except for on Fridays. And she is now today. So that's kind of cool. Camping though. So she wrote in the thing that she was not starting this dry challenge till next week. I think she's planning to do it, but she definitely wasn't starting this week because she was camping this week. And then I saw you wrote that you were going camping as well. Is it this weekend coming up?
Next weekend.
Okay.
Not this one. Next one. Yeah.
I'm a little worried about that. I mean, I wouldn't know what to do. I would not know why you camp if you can't have alcohol during it. I truly don't know what camping is without that. I'm not going to do any of the activities that people sometimes do on camping. I just don't do those. I just go there, sit around the fire, eat food, drink beer, and it's fun. I like that. But I don't know why you'd go if you're not having beer.
I mean, camping has changed. Family camping has quite changed my my camping habits from the days when I would just go with Katie or with friends. There's quite a bit more alcohol happening in those days. But I don't know. I mean, this probably will be the first time I've gone camping since I was 19 years old and didn't have any alcohol involved. Even on like fast packing trips or backpacking trips, carrying around a little flask or a little thing of boxed wine or something like that. I mean,
right.
That's kind of been the standard. So
did it cross your mind that maybe you should just cancel the camping trip, or not?
No, because we got it's my sister and her family are involved, and my mom's coming, and it's like a big thing. I can't be like, hey, we can't guys, we can't go camping because I'm doing this silly challenge. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. My brother-in-law told me that because it's right by a creek. He said every time you want to drink, you just have to get in, do a cold plunge in the creek. To kind of reset your body. Right. And so maybe that's what I'll do. Spend all night in the cold plunge.
Maybe. Huberman did mention that in the podcast. He said that's one of these natural ways to bump up your adrenaline and dopamine, and it happens. And the several hours afterward, there's a positive effect on those things. And you can sort of train. I think forget what the context was. I think he was saying some people were saying if you have alcohol a little bit here and there, there's this idea that like if you take in a small amount of a poison, you actually will strengthen your body if it's not enough to kill you. And that perhaps is true with some poisons. But he said that alcohol, there's no good argument for that. And he said this other thing is kind of a better example of doing something that's challenging for yourself, and it, creates a positive effect in your body over time.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Bianca's having an Athletic Brewing NA coffee beer for breakfast right now. That is awesome.
Look at that. I didn't know they had coffee beer. I don't even remember seeing that. But that is one of the good things about Athletic Brewing or those kind of beers. You could have those for breakfast, as I think was a little more traditional. But like traditionally, people would do that more often than they do now. Have beer as throughout the day as a just replacement for water. So you could actually do that with these non-alcoholic beers. You'd take in a lot of sugar over the day if you did that, but not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah. Before Leslie Knight says, call my last day of backpacking. This must be our last day of backpacking or bike packing.
Mm-hmm.
About 50 miles from the airport and then headed home. I rode through a tornado warning this morning and some rain. Yikes.
That's good because biking is so safe that you just wouldn't want to do it in its current safe state. You need to make it more dangerous than it is. So do it through a tornado warning. I'm a huge fan of cycling for its safety things.
I was talking about, so I would be interested one day to hear more about Leslie's bike packing experience. I was talking this morning on my ride this morning about how I'd like to get into that, give that a go.
I'd like to get an exoskeleton and do a sort of run around the country trip with, that enhanced speed and endurance that it would give me.
Oh yeah.
I would enjoy that.
Man, I bet they would give you a bunch of them. If you said you were going to run across the country, they would that would be a huge promotional thing for them. That'd be great.
Yeah. No, I'm not going to do that. All right, good. So let's see. Anything else? Last night for dinner, I had another Isa Does It recipe, her cast iron stir fry. And we used the super, I forget what it's called. It's like how there's extra firm protein and then there's super firm protein. Not protein, tofu. There's the super firm tofu. Comes in like a different kind of package, much heavier. It has it's basically like they just condensed the protein or the tofu into a smaller space, because it has extra protein, extra fat. I think it maybe doesn't have extra carbohydrate, or maybe I forget. One of the things it doesn't have more, but it basically just packed more calories into a small space. It was actually very good though. I liked it. Usually we eat for our family. We'll eat 2 packs of tofu in one sitting. And with this, we didn't need to because it was extra dense. But the cast iron skillet stir fry recipe, Isa Does It is just a great book. If you don't have it, go to the library or something and get it, or order it if you'd like. It just has a lot of good weeknight meals. I mean, it is,
and they're all so easy, and they're like not ingredients that you don't have, that you've never heard of or cooked with.
Right.
I love it.
That's why it's called Isa Does It, because it's easy. It's easy does it.
Easy does it.
Yeah.
I had an easy meal last night. And one that I just always forget about, which is just simple like roasted vegetables. A whole bunch of roasted vegetables over brown rice with a little homemade sauce and some tofu, and that was it. I mean, it was great.
Yeah. I mean, basically what I had, except stir fried instead of
yeah, right. I don't know. I mean, we stir fry stuff all the time, but I just so rarely think to.
Yeah, I don't do much roasting either. Stephanie Romine, my co-author of the No Meat Athlete Cookbook, she was really big on the roasting. Like that was one of her cooking hacks, was cut up a bunch of vegetables, put them in the oven, and then do whatever else you need to while they roast for 25, 30 minutes, whatever, and then your meal is ready. I basically never use the oven, like for dinner. I just don't. Might as well not have an oven, and I'd be fine.
Only for lunch?
No, like for never. Like for I guess a dessert or if we were Aaron baked spreads in it. I don't know. I think we should get rid of ovens out of households. Save energy.
Okay. Go for it.
I don't know.
No oven, no grill. All you need is a hot plate. You're good to go.
And a pizza oven, yeah.
That's all you need.
And a paella pan. Paella setup. That's all you need.
And an air fryer and a pressure cooker.
Okay, what else? Anything else, Doug, going on in your life situation?
Kind of. Not for me, but I spent the morning looking out my window watching Katie plant a bunch of spring vegetables in the garden, which is awesome. Maybe also contributing to my good mood, watching all those seeds go in. Beans and peas and lettuce, I think.
Pure seed? You're starting from the seeds, not the starts?
We'll do like tomatoes and stuff from starts, but this is pure seeds.
Okay, good. glad to hear that. Enjoy. I mean, gardening is a great habit. It's a great hobby. I mean, it's fitness, all that kind of stuff. This is not gardening. I pulled out our Art of Fermentation book yesterday after I read about the good fermented things that you should be eating, and figured out I'm going to do some fermenting. I don't know what I'm going to make, but I'm going to either ferment beans or tofu or soybeans. I don't know what, but something good, and I'm going to try actual at-home fermenting. We've had this book for a long time, never used it. It's sort of the Bible of fermentation, I believe, but I've never used it. Art of Fermentation. And then speaking of books, this Outlive book, which I will put on the camera again today.
2 shout outs.
I know. I've never been a huge fan of Peter Attia. I don't dislike him or anything. I just don't have time to listen to long podcasts, honestly. So it's been good to read this thing. He is he was a fitness guy, got into nutrition. He doesn't argue for one style of nutrition over another. But he, certainly we'll talk a bunch about it in the book. And I will surely bring that into the show. But what I thought was interesting, he's all about longevity, health span, talks about the 4 horsemen of death, which are like the 4 common, killers that take, I think, 85% of lives eventually. And he's all about just, maintaining fitness as you get older. It talks about if you want to have this long health span, like people envision that they're going to be, 80 and still doing their tennis playing or hiking, whatever their hobby is. And he says, like, for some people, that's just an unrealistic view because they don't have in place a plan to like make sure that keeps happening. People just sort of expect like the same amount of effort will be required to keep doing that then as is now. You just have to keep doing it. He says it's not that at all. He said you have to have a plan for basically gaining fitness every year up until then, because this pull of aging will just make everything harder. Recovery's gonna be slower, less muscle mass. You're gonna fall more. It just gets harder, and you have to be basically doing something that will mitigate that. And probably it means increasing the amount of effort you're putting towards that stuff. And he says, of all the tools we have in our disposal, because he's an MD, he says all the tools we have, medicine, food, whatever, exercise is the number one tool for improving health span and lifespan. It's the best thing you can do if you want to live longer and be happier.
And what does that exercise look like?
I haven't gotten into that. He talks a little bit about generally resistance stuff. I mean, muscle building stuff and aerobic stuff, of course. But I have not gotten past page 60 or so right now.
Interesting.
So yeah, I haven't heard many people say that. It seems like recently the trend has been towards diet as like that's the key. And that might be because we're in the plant-based space, which is a diet, and people are going to want to emphasize that. So I'm really curious about that. He said when it comes to diet, certainly that's an important thing, but not as important as exercise. But the most important thing seems to be just not eating a lot of calories. Like whatever your diet's going to be, he said, I'm not picking a side, but it's about not taking in too many calories.
Don't like to hear that.
No, I don't like that one. You like your calories?
No, generally I think that's bad advice.
Okay. Disagree. Good. Disagree on that
one. Because tater tots.
Yeah, right. Good. Valid point.
Tater tots and tacos,
Yeah, he must not have thought about that when he wrote that advice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Totally overlooked the fact that there are tater tots in the world.
Well, that's interesting. That's good. Keep us filled in as you learn more, because I want to know more about that exercise.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay, good. Well, you want to look at this Instagram pizza reel thing of yours that you found?
Hold on. Before we do, a couple more comments came in. I asked up in the comment of what did you have for dinner last night. Mr. Jeffrey says he was craving grilled cheese on garlic bread with tomato soup. And that sounds pretty good, and actually fits into this cheese talk we're gonna have here.
What kind of cheese? I'd like to know, Mr. Jeffrey. Do you choose?
Oh yeah, good call. And then Anne Marie said had the bean and sweet potato chili from Plant U and the carrot cake from Forks Over Knife for my parents' 65th wedding anniversary. That's cool. Congratulations to your parents, Anne Marie. 65 years married is quite the accomplishment. Very cool. Jill said she had baked sweet potato topped with barbecue tempeh and guacamole.
How old is Anne Marie? She's been married 65 years?
No, her parents' 65th wedding.
I stood up and closed my door for a second, so I missed that. Okay.
And let's see what else. Lentil fajitas. Now we're talking from Dale Stevens. So some good meals. And then
lentils extremely high in folate, by the way.
Oh, so, good. And they're also going to be a little teaser. They're also going to be a good call for the environment too. We'll talk about that here in a minute.
That's right.
And then Kate at Rivercat0338 says, should we start a Play-Based Morning Show book club? That could be kind of fun in the Discord. You want to lead it, Kate?
That could be fun.
If you want to lead it, go for it.
Yeah. Anyone who wants to lead anything, do it. Or do jobs for the show. Awesome. You can do that too. Anyone who wants to.
All right. So I was surfing Instagram yesterday and had a reel pop up for me that I thought was kind of interesting. So I'm going to actually throw it up on YouTube. Matt, we're going to need to use your sound if you don't mind.
Okay.
It's about tips for making cheese melt on your pizza, which this is, and they were actually, I'd never heard of. The main tip is quite unique. So I'm excited. Okay. I was excited to share this. All right. We ready here?
Ready.
Your drawer and make your own.
So you get it to refresh here.
So I guess ready doesn't mean
Unshred your shreds. Just like pre-packaged dairy shreds, they add a lot of starches for a longer shelf life. Bust those up in a food processor to add surface area, helping them melt better. Speaking of better, tip 2, use a block instead. Any brand or type will do. Dust off that cheese grater from the back of your drawer and make your own shreds. This avoids the starch problem. For an even better melt with the block, tip 3, add olive oil. The extra fat aids the melt, adds flavor, as well as a better mouthfeel. Bonus tip, use the broiler for the last 4 minutes to finish the top of the pizza off, then slam some pizza right in your face.
All right, so that was from Mike _Trabert, Trabert. And I guess he has a bunch of vegan tips. They kind of went down a little rabbit hole for him. But I don't know. I thought, so the shredding your shreds.
Isn't that the same as use a block, though? Tip number 2? I was confused by the difference between those two tips.
So if you buy shredded cheese,
you shred the shreds. Okay.
If you buy shredded cheese, take that and like put it in a food processor, and that will help break up some of the starch.
Breaks it up. Okay. Gotcha.
Or the block is the same as,
even better the block. So then there probably is less starch overall.
Right. Exactly.
I would guess. Okay, good.
I thought that those were two interesting tips. I never would have considered either of them, honestly.
I actually like the olive oil one. I thought that was the brilliant one.
The olive oil
to put it in some sort of medium. We've talked, I think, in the cold water thing, we talked about the transfer of heat through air versus water or versus a liquid. Much more efficient in a liquid. So if you put it in the oil, then it's obviously going to get the thing hotter, I guess, in the oven. Just like if you're going to try to cool down a non-alcoholic beer last minute in the freezer, which I always find myself having to do. You wrap it in a wet paper towel and then put it in the freezer, and that will again aid in that heat transfer. So I like that olive oil idea a lot. I don't know about 4 minutes under the broiler. That sounds like the recipe for a burnt top of your pizza.
Well, don't you think? I mean, isn't a pizza oven essentially broiling it, or no?
No, because the stone underneath is very hot.
Right. Okay. Good point.
So I don't know. I guess you would take it out 4 minutes early and then do that. I don't know. But yeah, good tips if you're going to eat that garbage, which I'm not. I'm
going to try it next time we make pizza, which will probably be this weekend.
Yeah.
I will report back. I'm going to either shred by shreds and mix it with a little olive oil.
Yeah.
Or we'll get a block maybe. Maybe we'll get a block.
Yeah, I don't really see blocks very much. I mean, I saw that they had a block of slices that he used. I don't see too many blocks of vegan cheese like that.
Yeah. I don't either.
All right, good. People like it. So
Mr. Jeffrey says also look for tapioca in the ingredients. Is tapioca good or tapioca?
I think tapioca is going to help with melting, maybe he's saying. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't know, because I think tapioca is the starch. So I mean, they're using tapioca starch usually. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, right. When I had pizza this past weekend at my dad's house, and we had the Miyoko's pourable mozzarella.
Oh yeah, how was it?
It's good. I've had it before, and it's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's way better than these things we're talking about here. Because I had told him, he said, "What kind of cheese do you want on the pizza?" And I said, "No cheese. We'll just crumble this. We'll just use this get some cashews and some nutritional yeast. Do the sprinkle. I would much rather have that than these starch and oil cheeses. But he said, we have some of this. And I said, okay, well, that's way better. That's great. So 100% better than these junky cheeses.
Okay. I haven't tried it. Do you know where is it a Whole Foods only thing, or is it?
He got it at Hopi, I think. Hopi and Co. for $1. Uh-huh. So it was probably very close to expiration, possibly past expiration date. Uh-huh. So I don't know where else you can get it than that. I think they have it in like Targets.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. Okay. Good. We've sufficiently killed a lot of the time. So now we can get into what is a pretty short show today.
Weather report.
Weather report was very lame today. Nothing good really to talk about, but I did find one, and that is that a new survey commissioned by Amy's Kitchen, who we all know and love, finds that the majority of Americans, 52%, express a curiosity about vegan foods, with 2/3, 66%, of American parents revealing they are especially intrigued about the plant-based foods category. And I think, as we said yesterday, that this plant-based foods category kind of excludes fruits and vegetables and grains and beans and all the actual foods. It's more these packaged plant-based substitutes of animal products. So 2/3 of parents are interested in that. I guess that's okay. I don't know. I'm like, this was independently of this. I was thinking today about how I'm kind of glad that I have weaned myself off of the vegan meats, because they just scare me. This ultra processed food idea that down the road it's going to be bad news, not for the vegan movement, but for like, we're going to find out these things give us cancer or something just horrible that we've been just eating and don't care about. And so then I thought, wait a minute, like I've got myself off of them, but I still give them to my son, especially all the time. My daughter doesn't really like them, but he's trying to put on weight. And I'm always thinking, yeah, if you can eat a vegan burger, opportunity to do that, you should do it, because it's more calories than any other foods we have. And he likes it more than any other food we have. So he'll just eat it anytime. And we just constantly give him that. And I was thinking, like, what am I doing giving that to my kid if I think it's not a safe thing to be doing with any regularity? So I need to address that problem. But I can understand that. I think that's why parents are, I don't know. I think people assume it's healthier, and maybe it is in some ways. For surely it is in some ways. But I don't know. I'm just worried about it.
We went over to a friend's house. We had a play date at a friend's house, and they were gracious enough to make vegan nuggets for the kids, and served it to their kid, who was definitely not vegan, and she did not like it at all.
Really?
I mean, and no one said anything about it being vegan to the kids or anything like that. She just did not like it.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised. I thought it was more or less indistinguishable these days, the vegan nugget.
No, well, and not to this 4-year-old.
Speaking of vegan nuggets, I said the other day that on the way home from Asheville, we stopped at Whole Foods, and the only thing in the hot bar for us to get as far as a vegan protein was the fish fillets. Yeah. And someone else posted them and said, I heard you guys talk about this in the show. I had them also, and I thought they were terrible, dried out, these not any good. Whereas I said they were actually surprisingly good. And then someone else said, those look exactly like the Gardein chicken tenders. And then I realized that is exactly what they look like and exactly what they are. I mean, they're the fish version from Gardein, but yeah. I don't know. We like that. That was kind of I think I said this a while ago. Someone asked during the AMA about what was our like nostalgic kind of early days junk food thing that we just had a lot. And for us, it was those Gardein chicken tenders. And this food was exactly that. I should have realized that it was, and I kind of did. I don't know if it was conscious. But yeah, I mean, it was almost the same thing, plus some whatever they're doing for fish flavor. So anyway, I still think it was pretty good, but I think the Whole Foods bar is not the best place to get that stuff. It dries it out.
Yeah, I like those. I like those chicken things. I mean, those,
I'd be surprised if a kid wouldn't like that. Like, I don't know how a kid wouldn't, but I don't know. And then the only other interesting thing that said here was that looking at the different groups of people, they found nearly 3 in 5 men expressed curiosity about vegan foods, while interest among Gen Z and millennials was strong, 58% saying they were veg curious. But I was thinking, if I don't know which stat that 3 in 5 men one fits compared, like what is the corresponding stat for the overall group? I don't know if that's the 66% who were interested for parents. I don't think so. It might be the Americans, 52% express a curiosity about vegan foods. I think that's what it is, because that was 52%. So if 3 in 5 men are expressing that curiosity, but only 52% of the overall, we don't know the ratio of men and women that they surveyed. I'm guessing it was 1-to-1 roughly. That would mean that the women or the rest of the survey group were much less than that. So some like 2 and 5, 40%. So that's surprising because I've always sort of assumed it was the opposite. So who knows? But again, this is an AB survey, so how careful were they in their research?
If it's a published survey, it has to be 100% accurate, right?
Oh yeah, I forgot that. You're right. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was thinking, questioning it. All right.
Science.
Okay, so we've got one submitted from Discord. I love Discord generated content because it makes my job easier. And recently, man, it's been a lot of Eat That and Best Life Online, and we've even got a Best Life Online thing today that we may get to.
I don't think we'll get to it.
What happens?
I think we're going to spend enough time here.
If you sit all day. I do too today, though. Just because a lot of them are according to doctors. What happens if you don't get enough vitamin D? What happens if you sleep less than 6 hours? What happens to your body if you eat meat every day? It's all what happens if you do this crazy thing every day. I guess it's not that crazy, but they find a little vein and they just go along that vein until there's nothing left to talk about. That's how these sites operate.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not talking about
that. It's hooked us.
Yeah. But we're going highbrow this time. We're going to The Economist.
The Economist.
Where you and I had to sign up for. Well, we probably shouldn't tell people we had to sign up for little email accounts. We're not Economist regular readers. Maybe you are. Doug,
I used to be.
Version. Yeah,
I used to be in the magazine in college because you could get as a college student, you can get The Economist for.
Did you actually read it? You just threw it on the coffee table. Wanted to be like the Economist guy.
I would read the world section because I was really into international politics at the time. And so I'd read maybe half of it. But I mean, I don't know. I always thought that it was well researched and well done. This one, I think it's a creative way to be looking at the climate impact of food. It doesn't really, it's I don't know. Let's get into it.
Okay. Are you able to put it on the screen here? Because it's definitely a visual.
It's on the screen. Yep.
Okay, good. So the headline is a different way to measure the climate impact of food. And it was submitted by Mike from Discord. So thank you, Mike, for sending this in. There's a link to another survey that he gave. I don't know if they give it in the article as well. Not a survey, a study that actually this data comes from. That they have put it into this nice visualization. So what they did is instead of just saying, I think typically the way to measure the climate impact of a food, and they're just looking at CO2 emissions here. They're not looking at water or whatever the other thing is, maybe energy required to make it. Just looking at emissions, but I think the typical way to do it is by weight of the food. Mm-hmm. And the point here, the idea in the study is that maybe that's not the best way because some foods contain more water than others, or for whatever other reason, weigh more or less than others. The question is, what value is that food actually giving us in terms of calories? And let's look then relative to that, which foods are the worst offenders and which ones are the best. So that's like what's represented in the top graph here is emissions by weight. And by the way, the different sizes of the circles on here, the biggest circles was the CO2 emissions by weight. So what they do by keeping the circle sizes like that, the circle sizes stay the same throughout each of the three graphs. So you can always refer back to the by weight, breakdown. But anyway, what they did was they figured it out by calorie count, and then they figured it out by protein per 100 grams of protein. They compared everything to the lowly banana, which was normalized to 1. And then so everything, if it comes out less than 1 in any of these, then it has more emissions than the banana per calorie or per gram of protein. Sorry, less.
Fewer.
Okay, yeah, fewer. And if it's greater than 1, then it has more emissions per weight, per calorie count, or per protein, depending on which graph you're looking at. So yeah, well,
let's start at the top one. I mean, the top one is probably pretty in line with what you'd expect, right? Like beef is the worst offender.
Beef,
all 4 of these
4-legged animals,
lamb chops, and then you got your like cheeses are up there.
And these are in the 10 to 100 range compared to the banana at 1. Mm-hmm. So these are 10 to 100 times bananas cost to produce in terms of emissions relative to weight. And then you get into the 2-legged animals, chickens, and then the fish.
And then you start going into all of the vegetarian or vegan options. You got, like a Caesar salad, cherry tomatoes are kind of in the middle here. Breakfast cereal, chickpeas and beans are kind of pretty close to the banana. And then below you have your almonds, apples, lemons, almond butter, beers down here somewhere I noticed.
Frozen sweet potato fries, pretty low.
Sweet potato fries, frozen sweet potato fries, excellent. Onion is.
Why do people? Does anyone like sweet potato fries? Is anyone happy to get that instead of a regular fry?
I used to like sweet potato fries. I love sweet potatoes.
Over a regular fry, you did?
Yeah, I would order. There was a time in my life when I would order sweet potato fries over a regular fry.
I mean, that's just a crazy thing.
That is not the case anymore. That should have been part of the debate.
Yeah, I would have loved to see how that compared to like curly fries, which no one really liked. I don't think anyone likes sweet potato fries. I think that is a dying trend.
Yeah, sweet potato fries or sweet potatoes?
Yeah, sweet potato fries. I know people like sweet potatoes.
I would agree with that. And then potatoes are the lowest here.
Yeah, interestingly, because that's a very healthy food. Like people who do potato diets for weight loss, it's thought to be not a healthy food, but it provides some nice amount of nutrition, and it's now we know very eco-friendly in terms of carbon anyway.
Emission by weight.
Yes.
But so where I think it kind of gets interesting here is as you go further down. So calorie count, things turn around a little bit. Like lettuce is a good example, and that was one that was called out in Discord.
Yep.
It's a pretty high offender here because it's so low in calories, I guess.
Provides no calories, yeah.
And so emissions per calorie, it's a pretty low offender, and then also per protein content.
Yep.
And there's there's some flip flopping here. You got your chocolate, you got mostly cheese. What else? All cheese, but your cabbage, eggs, broccoli, kale, all that kind of stuff is much more in line with your fishes and things like that. Cucumber, pork chops, all that kind of stuff's pretty in line on a per calorie basis.
Yeah.
Your lowest offender is almond, which I thought was really interesting.
Because almonds pack in lots of calories, and they're still I think they're bad as far as water goes, but as far as CO2 emissions, they're good. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. And then almond butter, even better. I don't know why that would suddenly get better, because I would think the calories would be the same, but I don't know.
Potatoes, beer, all that stuff still kind of in this low area. So
beer and potatoes now is the eco diet.
I know.
Beer and fries.
Potatoes. That's the Irish diet. This turns out to be the most eco-friendly diet.
Right. So, I mean, what is interesting so far is, I guess, that this is, I think this emissions by calorie count is a more fair way to examine these foods, right? The traditional way, the way by weight, is obviously the one that you most hear about. But I think what this makes it a little more fair, help the calorie dense foods benefit here relative to the calorie poor foods. Because for the same amount of eco impact as they had on their by weight scale, they do better if they're packing in a lot of calories, because we're looking per calorie. So, it moves the animal products to overlap a little bit more with the vegetables, because the animal products tend to be more calorie dense. So that's not that surprising. And then it goes into protein content, and you would expect now that the plant or the animal foods would do even better, and that is exactly what happens. The overlap becomes much more. And so, saying if you want to get this amount of protein, X amount for the least damage to the environment, it's
least emissions.
Better. Yes, right. You have somewhat more of an argument here. So now in these cases, the beef is only 10 times as bad as the banana, not 100 times as bad as the banana.
But you're like your salmons and your chicken burger and stuff like that are now much more on a per calorie count. They look much more appealing, and they're less than the banana. What I think is interesting is this: if you look at the meat-free burger, they call out certain things: salmon, rice, beef burger, meat-free burger, and almond in all of the charts. If you're not hovering over it, and the meat-free burger is significantly better on CO2 emissions per whatever weight, calorie, or protein on all three of these.
Better than what? Than the other burgers?
Beef burger. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It is. Yeah, I mean, this is interesting to see. And it makes sense. It does exactly what you would predict, is that the animal products look better when we look at how much calories they provide, and then even better when you look at how much protein they provide, because they provide relatively more of those things than the plant foods do. It's okay. There are two sort of weird things I think here, like calorie count. We're saying more calories equals good, bang for your buck here in terms of emissions. So, things do better on the calorie count basis, but when you look at like health and things like that, like you typically people want the lower calorie density foods.
Right.
So if you look at like actual benefit to your health, not in terms of feeding a starving person,
right? Nutrients,
right?
Micronutrients,
and that would be interesting if they did emissions by Andy score or by some other measure of health.
I like that.
That'd be very interesting. You'd see the vegetables again become the much better ones. So that's kind of interesting. And then the protein one to me is very much not that helpful because like I don't know, like that banana versus beef is a good example. Like the conclusion you might draw is say, well, the banana is a 10 times better way to get our protein as far as the environment goes than to get that protein from beef. But if you were to make decisions based on that and say, well, therefore I'm not going to eat beef, I'm going to get my protein from bananas, then you'd have to take in so many bananas and so much extra other calories, right? You have to take so much carbohydrate. And I'm not saying that sugar is a bad thing, but you're getting other macronutrients and you'd never be able to hit protein needs. I mean, I guess you could hit protein needs in a strict sense, but like you wouldn't be eating a very balanced diet in terms of those nutrients go. So these animal products still are a very efficient protein source in that they don't provide other nutrients. So it's just sort of a weird thing. Like I don't know what conclusions you can really draw from this emissions by protein content graph, as interesting as it is to look at.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. It doesn't. I mean, I guess if you're only focused on protein, but no one is only focused on protein. I mean, people want to increase their protein, but you got to also look at the bigger picture and calories and everything else. So I agree with you. But I mean, it's kind of interesting. It's an interesting way to look at it. Mr. Jeffrey points out that I'm not understanding the protein has to do with it, just manipulation to make beef look better, which, I mean, could be part of it too. Is it's
yeah, I was wondering about that. I was wondering about the economists in general and the study, what incentives they might have had. But yeah, that's sort of the thing. I mean, I guess like if you the arguments I would make would be obvious, I think. So I think it doesn't really help you very much. I don't know that.
He also points out, which I thought was a good thing to call out as well, which is it's weird this list has raw foods and recipes. Why are bananas and banana bread on the same list? Or a burger and then chickpeas, right? Like, I mean, but I don't know. It's good to see. It's good to see the comparisons of the different.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's certainly if you're bringing different, like you'd expect that the banana bread, then it's just going to be the average of all the ingredients that go into it. And if you looked at each ingredient, it would make sense that the banana bread is somewhere in the middle of those things. But yeah, it's a weird way of comparing stuff. But I guess if you're gonna try to make decisions, but yeah, I mean, there's not much decisions you can make. Like Mike pointed out, I said, I'm not going to stop eating my iceberg lettuce. And I'm sure the same is true for these other, kale and collard greens. Like they also, just like iceberg lettuce, although they provide a lot more micronutrients, they also don't provide many calories. And that's what makes them so great as health foods, is they provide lots of micronutrients in relatively few calories. So those are also going to be relatively bad, like the lettuce is, when it comes to calorie count per, emissions. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do with this. To me, I throw it all out. Say I don't care about this stuff at all. I eat a vegan diet, so I'm good when it comes to my diet as far as the environment goes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the other thing is, this is only looking at CO2 emissions. It's not looking at water usage. It's not looking at transportation emissions to your plate. All the other stuff that contributes to the environmental impact of your food. Almonds, for example, are something that I've moved away from into some level. Certainly, almond milk. Just because of the amount of water that is used to produce it and the droughts that were happening in California and still are, but right now they're plush with water. You can maybe make some choices from this, I guess, but I don't know. I find it interesting to look at and to explore, while at the same time agreeing with you in that, I mean, most of the foods I'm eating are way better than the cheeses and the beefs and all the animal products and stuff like that. So like, if I just continue eating the food that I'm eating, it's going to be a way better diet for the environment than an omnivore diet.
I think if you eat a plant-based diet, you're exempt from all environmental responsibility, basically, because you're doing a billion times more than anybody else with your diet. I'm serious. What about the argument, Doug? I don't really use the great outdoors, therefore I'm not responsible for its upkeep. Is that that hold weight with you?
No, it makes zero sense. Yeah.
Someone put some hearts in Instagram for that one.
Because yeah, I mean that do we want to go into that debate, Matt? I don't know.
No, we don't. But I'm sure that
it's not about like the national parks, Matt. This food will no longer exist if we don't start taking care of the environment, and neither will you, for that matter. So,
well, maybe not my grandkids. I think I will. I'll be fine, but I don't think kids might not be. But I don't care about them. Feed them all the meat, all the burgers, all this.
Oh my god!
Whatever. All right, good.
Matt. What are we gonna do with you?
I don't know. I do not know. Okay. Anything else to add here before we wrap up and sign off?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Mr. Jeffrey says, Matt is captain of Opt Inside. Yeah, that's right. I really hate that Opt Outside campaign. I hate the billboard I used to have to stare at that said that a day out is always better than a day in. And I completely disagreed with that. I just thought that's totally wrong and insensitive. And I was offended by it, honestly, that they would just that they would just say automatically being outside is better than inside. I don't agree with that.
Well, I know you're a sensitive soul when it comes to you get offended by everything.
I sure do. Mr. Jeffrey does point out, he said, not if you're going to live to 150. So if I'm going to live that long, then this environment thing could end up coming back to bite me in the ass. So I better get on that, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. You're doing all this stuff to live longer.
Based on this book that I've been reading, he's not so optimistic about this. He points out something really interesting, that if you remove the top 8 infectious diseases that killed people, all of which were basically solved with sanitation practices of modern medicine, and a few other little small things. Take out those, and you just look at long-term killers. There's been like not zero, but very, very little improvement in lifespan in the last 150 years. Like it's just like the graph is about flat. If you just get rid of that, what happened when sanitation happened? So this idea that like science is pushing the frontier of how long we can live further and further all the time, it's just not happening at all. So until there's some massive breakthrough, which maybe we're on the cusp of now with all this, huge stuff happening in technology. I don't know. There's just not that much evidence that like you and I are going to get to be 100, no problem.
Well, is that because of other new things that we're adding into our environments?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like less activity is sitting more phones that are giving us cancer. Like we're introducing all these new things that
possible.
Ultra processed foods kind of negating any of the gains that we were getting from.
Yeah, I mean, right. So maybe it's not medicine's fault. Maybe medicine's doing a great job. It's just that we're outpacing it with these bad behaviors of ours.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right. Well, on that positive note, we will wrap up and go enjoy our Thursday. You have any band show tonight, Doug, or anything like that?
No shows.
What are you going to do for Thirsty Thursday?
I don't know, Matt.
Your big night. You don't know?
Big night. Still going to go out to dinner. Maybe I'll get a non-alcoholic beer or something.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I've been doing that every night. It's been good.
I'll report back tomorrow. This would be the first like real test. I mean, I'm confident that I'm not going to fail it, but this will be the first test of living my normal lifestyle.
Right.
Without alcohol.
Yeah, you might need to change that lifestyle if you're not going to drink anymore.
I know. I'm just going to be sitting around, twiddling my thumb by myself. No more bands.
Playing the band or something.
No more friends.
Yeah. Bring that bottle of Ritual out with you tonight and just ask the bartender to use that in your mix.
Yeah, I'm sure they'd love that.
All right. Well, we'll check in tomorrow and find out what you did and how it went.
Eat my feelings with corn chips. That's a good call, Jessica. I might just do that.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Great idea.
All right, everyone. We will see you tomorrow. Thanks, Matt, for another good show.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for
Sounds good. Thank you.